I don't think anyone could predict what's happened in the last 12 months.
Very rarely saw Bob sit up in his seat and you sparked something in him.
I remember saying to someone, even when I retire, I feel like I'll still want to bowl. I remember being 16 or 17 and bowling in the nets at the first team. Again, that kind of just drives your standards up as well.
Were you always an out-and-out quick bowler? Is that what you wanted to be?
It's just a constant work in progress for me, and I think that's sort of ran throughout my career. I don't want to sound horrible towards him, but I watch so much cricket, I watch so many bowlers. I have done it for a number of years. So there's no reason why you should put a limit on how long you can play for. And golf a lot easier than batting, to be honest. Hitting the stationary ball's a lot easier than hitting a moving one.
Hello and welcome along to another edition of Beyond the Boundary. It's a snowy and wintry Emirates Old Trafford behind me, but I'm delighted to say that I've got one of Lancashire's finest alongside me in the studio here high up above the ground. Jimmy Anderson has played over 20 years for England and Lancashire. He's the highest wicket-taking seam bowler in Test match history. And Jimmy, it all began here at Old Trafford for you. What are your earliest memories of coming to Old Trafford, Emirates Old Trafford as it is now?
Yeah, I think the first memory I've got is it might have been a Benson and Hedges semi-final against Yorkshire. My dad brought me along, and then we did Lords as well, the final that year against Kent, so it must have been '96, I think. But yeah, I always supported Lancashire, loved cricket as a kid, so getting to come here was really special.
And those early days as a player, of course you began playing at Burnley, that's well known, but were you always an out-and-out quick bowler? Is that what you wanted to be when you were young?
Well, when I'd say between the ages of sort of 8, when you start playing sort of competitive cricket, to about 14, I was pretty average at both. I couldn't bowl very fast. I tried to be as quick as I could, but I didn't have the pace that I then gathered in the coming years. And with the bat, my batting's probably stayed the same throughout my career. Struggled to hit it off a square as a kid, and never quite came to grips with it. So yeah, it wasn't until I was 15 when I started getting a bit quicker, and that's when I thought, that's what I really wanted to do. Just
as a little aside, we've played a bit of golf together, not a lot, but a bit, and you strike a golf ball wonderfully well, right-handed, low single figures handicap. Why didn't you consider batting right-handed? Or was it that you just picked up a golf club and hit it right-handed?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Batting is the only thing I do left-handed. And my dad has got a theory that my cousin, who I played a lot with as a kid, he was left-handed, so I sort of copied him potentially. But yeah, I find golf a lot easier than batting, to be honest. Hitting the stationary ball's a lot easier than hitting a moving one.
Let's just talk about your early days as a bowler here, because you played for Lancashire in the early 2000s, but progressed very quickly onto the England scene. And I remember a game here that was live on Sky. It was a Roses match, Bob Willis and myself commentating, and Bob especially, and you got to know Bob, who's sadly no longer with us obviously, but you got to know Bob quite well through the years. I very rarely saw Bob sit up in his seat as a commentator and take note of young individuals, and you sparked something in him. It was a fantastic, I think you got Fifer,
yeah.
And there was something about it. I think it was the pace that initially struck us. But I suppose at that time, this was just coming naturally to you, was it? Yeah,
so I reckon from about 15, that's when I started becoming a bit quicker, and at Burnley in particular, I was encouraged to just try and bowl as fast as I could, which, as quite a raw kid, I was spraying it a little bit, so I bowl beamers occasionally and quite a few wides and stuff like that, but they'd still keep encouraging me to bowl quick. And it was exactly the same when I started on the staff here. Warren Hegg was captain. Mike Watkinson, actually second team coach, was at the time trying to help me get to swing the ball and teach me to swing the ball. So I was sort of in between that, trying to swing it and bowl quick, and that's where the experience of someone like Warren Hegg, we have Peter Martin and Glenn Chappell in the bowling attack as well. Their experience, every now and then just saying, forget about swinging it, just bowl as fast as you can. And I felt like that game was one of those. It was, didn't really swing much, but they just wanted me to bowl quick, and especially then when the square was the other way around, one of the best places to bowl quick in the world was here at Old Trafford, with the pace and the bounce in the wicket. So I think that helped me develop as well.
Yeah, they were quick, pacey, hard pitches then, weren't they, as well? Peter Marron specials, we used to call them. They had a bit of grass on as well, which was nice. They used to zip through. There was no. You mentioned some names though. No shortage of individuals around you that would act as mentors. You mentioned Mike Watkinson, who played for years for Lancashire as a quality seamer, all-rounder, spinner in his latter days. So who were the ones that were perhaps more instrumental in forming the younger Jimmy Anderson then?
What before that?
Well, either, but yeah.
Well, I think we were fortunate at Burnley. We were fortunate that a few of the guys who played there went away and did their coaching badges. So we had 4 or 5 qualified coaches there, which, back in the early 2000s wasn't. I wouldn't say it was that common around the club scene. So I think that helped my development, and it also in that time we produced a number of county cricketers as well. Just before me, Mark Harvey was on the staff here at Lancashire for a while. Michael and David Brown both played county cricket. Jonathan Clare went and played county cricket at Derbyshire for a while. So that sort of
in the club environment, you had good people
early
around.
To mid to late through the 90s, it was quite a good sort of conveyor belt of players. So I think that that standard generally drove everyone. We all drove each other's standards up. So it helped me improve as a cricketer. And then coming here, and when I remember being 16 or 17 and bowling in the nets at the first team. Again, that kind of just drives your standards up as well.
Certainly does. I remember, just moving forward slightly, but not too far, to your first tour of Australia, and because you'd always got this ability to bowl really accurately as well. I remember a one-day game at Adelaide where you bowled your 10 overs for about 13, and we were commentating on it for Sky, and I interviewed you after, and I thought it was about the best spell of line bowling I'd seen. And you hardly bowled a bad ball. So allied to pace, you also had control. Where did that come from?
I don't know really. I think I always, I don't know. I guess being able to bowl the same ball. That I think that, because for me, I don't sort of aim somewhere. I don't look at the pitch. I don't look at the batter. I don't look at anything really when I'm bowling. I just sort of use my peripheral vision. And the ball coming out of my hand, it's sort of a feel thing. So I just, if it feels good and goes where I want it to, I'll try and just remember how that felt and replicate it. So then when you get, you call it the zone, or you get into a groove, into a rhythm, I always felt like I could bowl long spells getting into that sort of rhythm.
It's very interesting you say that, because that is it's the essence, in my view, of being able to bowl, i.e. to repeat. To feel comfortable and bowl ball after ball after ball. And sometimes I think that in the modern game, we've moved forward 20 years from 2002, bowlers and individuals want to explore variety. Now, I think variety is obviously good and essential in the modern game.
Yeah.
But you can't do that without having the basics, in my view. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've only been able to try and marry up the consistency and the accuracy with the varying the skills. I think can be quite difficult, because if you're not, you have to have your basics, as you say, your stock ball. You've got to be able to just something to fall back on, and then you develop the other skills. It took me 5 or 6 years to feel comfortable to bowl an in-swinger in a game without it going down leg side for four byes, or just not going where I wanted it to. So it's just a constant work in progress for me, and I think that's sort of ran throughout my career. Even now, I'm still working on. So just been to Pakistan, working on cutters, but making sure they there's no point bowling a cutter and dragging it halfway down. It's a waste of a ball. So you've got to try and make sure that every time you change your skill or you use your different variations, they're going to go in the right area.
It's a wonderful testimony to you and your ability that you say that after 20 years at the top, that essentially what you're saying is you're still learning.
Yeah.
And people probably from outside the game, or just who know a fair bit about the game, would say Jimmy's the finished article, and would have been 10 years ago perhaps. But that's not the case.
Yeah, but I think as soon as you think that as a player, then you stop. You can't stay still in any, not just cricket, but in anything you do. You can't just say, I'm happy with where I'm at, I'm just going to keep doing this and keep doing the things I've been doing for 10, 15, 20 years. Because then you get found out, you get people overtake you, new players come along and have more skills, are quicker, or they're generally better. So you've got to try and keep your standards as high as they possibly can. I've always felt like I'm not the finished article. I still feel like now at 40 I'm not the finished article. I feel like I've got things that I still work on. I've still come here, we've got a trip to New Zealand, tour to New Zealand soon. So I still go in indoor school and work on things that I think I'll need in New Zealand and make sure that they're as good as they can be.
So, again, very interesting. You're going from one extreme to the other, aren't you? From Pakistan to New Zealand. New Zealand, generally much more akin to English conditions for seam bowlers. There's a prospect of a day-night test
There is
as
a
well.
day-night test, yeah.
You're not a great advocate of the pink ball, I don't think, are you?
I don't. I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's been good in some ways. I just think Test cricket, in my eyes, is something that I don't think it needs to be tinkered with too much. I think it's down to the players to keep, being good adverts for the game, entertaining when we go on the field, trying to win games rather than playing a certain style that gets people watching rather than actually changing the nature of the game itself.
I totally agree with you, and that's been proven over the last 12 months for England. We might come onto that a bit later, that providing entertainment and excitement far better than just saying, oh, we'll use a pink ball. But let's just get back to going to New Zealand, because I'm interested in this, because from a personal point of view, if I was going to New Zealand, I would think, right, I've got to revert to type and become consistent, or be prepared to be consistent and just bowl that stop ball again, rather than experiment with cutters and whatever else. So is that part of your build-up, that you just have to think on a sort of back to basics level, if you like?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Pakistan, you think that reverse swing cutters are going to be the skills you need, and in New Zealand I'd say it is more your stop ball, but again there's still subtle variations in there that I think I'll need, and stuff that I've been working on. So using the crease I think is really important. So you can still bowl your stop ball, but from 4 or 5 different positions on the crease. So that's something that I've been just making sure I feel comfortable with. But yeah, generally you'd think it'd be very similar to English type conditions, where if you put enough balls in the right area, then you'll get something out of the wicket to cause problems.
Got to go back to Pakistan and that ball to Rizwan. I thought it's the best ball I've seen for donkey's years. I mean, you don't expect that sort of ball, do you?
Well, no, I wasn't expecting
no.
it. No,
I think you actually flattered. Well, you didn't flatter yourself. You were unflattering, saying it hit a crack.
Oh, it did hit a crack, definitely. Yeah. But I think that's just the nature. Again, playing out there, you've still got to keep bowling the balls in the right area for something like that to happen.
Yeah. Okay, just move on. But just if somebody had said to you in January 22, exactly 12 months ago, that you'd be doing what you did in Pakistan and enjoying the prospect of a New Zealand series with the Ashes coming up, would there have been more than an element of doubt in your mind whether you'd have been still here and in the mix, as it were?
Well, yeah, I think, 12 months ago there was definitely doubt with a lot of things, and I mean, I don't think anyone could predict what's happened in the last 12 months in terms of new captain, new coach, complete shift in direction of actually the style of play. So yeah, I mean, it's been, for me, certainly the last 6 months have been an absolute breath of fresh air, and I've absolutely loved it. And I've never really thought about retirement that much, but especially the way we've been playing the last few months, it couldn't be further from my mind at the minute.
No, you've been, I don't know whether you've been rejuvenated, but you've certainly received inspiration from the way England have played. I don't know whether you've ever sat down and thought about it, but what was the combination of Key, McCullum and Stokes sprung into English consciousness really around March, April last year?
Yeah.
What did they do and say to you that was able to give you confidence that you could go on to be where you are today? Because there must have been a thought when you weren't selected for the West Indies that maybe this is it then.
Yeah, and then similarly with when the new coach comes in, you don't know what direction he wants to go in. So thankfully, he rang me and said that he wanted me to play. He sees me in the strongest 11 and wants to pick his strongest 11 as much as possible. And the captain was of the same thought. So that obviously that filled me with confidence and thinking that they want me around, and there's no better feeling for a player to be wanted by the captain and coach. So, I was always starting the season with Lancashire, regardless of what happened in terms of England and stuff. So I was already focused on starting the season and just trying to bowl as well as I could. I think that just gave me that little bit of an extra nudge in the right direction.
You've said recently that you didn't believe, maybe that's not quite true, but you've been surprised at Ben Stokes' capacity for captaincy and his approach to it. When you played with him for 5-6 years as a teammate.
Yeah.
In what way has he surprised you?
Well, I've always seen Ben as a leader, but I always thought he was someone who led by example. So he's always the hardest trainer, the last in the nets, working so hard on things. He always put his body on the line in the field, bowling the long spells, diving around on the boundary, taking the diving catches and stuff. So I always thought he's always led by example in that sort of respect. But I just feel like, and I don't want to sound horrible towards him, but the way he has actually managed the players, the way the empathy that he's got towards the players, getting people in the right frame of mind to be able to go out there and perform the way we have performed in the last 8 months or whatever it is. And similarly with Brendan, they're very similar in that respect, getting the players in the right frame of mind to perform at their best. And I just think he's done that amazingly well.
And being able to adapt his approach to each individual, because we all know in a dressing room you've got 11 very different personalities. Everybody needs to be encouraged in different ways, and he's been able to do that. I'm just thinking of examples with Jack Leach, for instance.
Yeah,
he seems to have given him a huge amount of confidence.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great example because Jack's a very he's a confidence bowler. He needs that more than most, and I think that's all that Ben tries to do is give him confidence. He generally looks after the field as Ben, and then just lets Jack concentrate on bowling. And I think that's been amazing. And it's the same with everyone really. But he is having that knack of being able to know what to say to the certain person. He doesn't treat everyone the same. He knows how to get the best out of everyone. And I also think tactically on the field he's been brilliant as well, just constantly thinking about the game, constantly trying to move the game forward, making field changes, subtle sometimes, but just constantly tinkering, making the batsman think, like what, you know, just all the time the batsman's like, what's he doing here? So I think that's been something that everyone's enjoyed.
Taking the fear of failure out of individuals and the team as well.
Yeah.
Must be great fun to play in that sort of environment. Would it be the best fun you've had playing for England? I mean, obviously you've won Ashes series, but I'm talking as a general principle.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think just the general feel in the dressing room is so positive, and having that license just to go out there and take the most positive option for you within your game plan, I think is great. And for me, even at my age, I feel like, you know, sort of the middle of my career, I was kind of thought of as a control bowler, control the run rate and then get wickets through pressure. Whereas now it is literally like we have to get 20 wickets, and it doesn't matter how many runs we go for, we just want 20 wickets. So that, for me, I know it sounds strange, you know, having played for a long time, but that is a slight shift in my mindset, which I've really enjoyed.
To be the hunter again, rather than the boring bowl dry.
Yeah.
Let's keep plodding on. You know. Yeah, you get satisfaction out of it, but in a different way, don't you?
Yeah.
It's the hard work and the graft and the grind, but it must be. It's much more exciting to be explosive,
Definitely,
and to be involved in all that. So, going on from that, as senior bowler, which you obviously are, England are blessed with some pretty good up and coming bowlers. Jofra Archer's been out of the frame for a while due to injury, but you've got Robinson, you've got Wood, you've got Potts. How much are you encouraged to interact and be an influence on them? Is that what you want to do, or you know, there's two questions here. Do you want to do it, or have you been asked to do it and get into the mix, as it were?
Yeah, I don't think it should be something that you should be asked. I think you should just do it. It's your responsibility as a senior player to try and. It doesn't have to be bowlers either. It goes for anyone in the squad. It's your job to try. If you can help, then do it. I don't force myself on anyone. I don't try and tell people how to do stuff. I'm there if people need any advice. On the field's great as well. I try and field at mid-off as much as possible to try and talk to the bowlers. So yeah, we've just tried to create a really good sort of environment for the group of bowlers. So the communication is good, because that's how you learn, that's how you get better, that's how you perform well as a group, is by communicating and talking to each other a lot. So yeah, I think it's just part of my job, definitely.
Have you any aspirations to be a coach?
I'm not sure really. I do enjoy talking about the game. I enjoy that side of it. I like thinking about, you know, tactics and things like that. I just don't know what, you know. I think I'd like to in some capacity. Yeah.
I asked that because being a mentor is I think what Brendan McCullum is. I don't think he's a coach. I don't think he stands at the end of. Well, in fact, I know he doesn't stand there and put you right technically. It's more about getting you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
Talking about tactics, whatever else. And I think you'd be quite good at that, you see.
Yeah, I quite like that. I think, yeah, you're right about Brendan. I think if it was in football terms, he'd be a manager rather than a head coach. But yeah, he's, you know, it's quite nice to have that person in there when you've got the quality we've got in coaches. You know, having Marcus Trescothick with the batting, Paul Collingwood as well in there, Jeetan Patel, the spin coach. So we've got a good group of coaches. So he can sort of do that, be that kind of person who just oversees and makes sure everyone's in the right frame of mind.
But obviously, interestingly, again, your career and the continual development of your bowling has incorporated different styles, different thoughts, generally attributed with inventing the wobble seam delivery, even though that's probably been around for donkey's years. but there's wobble seam, there's reverse swing, there's just the beautiful way that you can stand the seam up. All those things are scientific, but you've made them an art form. What's got you thinking, hasn't it?
Yeah. Is there a question in there?
No, it was meant to be a statement that
Okay.
might provoke something. But I was just talking about the technical. See, it was back to the coaching element, and
Yeah,
the coaching
okay.
element is right. How do you bowl the wobble seam?
Yeah.
How do you bowl reverse swing? How do you stand the seam up so nicely? But in actual fact, and the beauty of this is, and the flattering thing about it is, you make it look so easy. You see, when it's obviously not.
But I think that comes from the hard work. You know, I've not just practicing things, but I watch so much cricket. I watch so many bowlers. Have done it for a number of years. So the wobble seam was Mohammad Asif. I tried to watch how he bowled it in 2010 when Pakistan came over here, and then tried to then develop it into my game. Because obviously, when I talk to other bowlers, they're right, how do you bowl this? But then for them, with a completely different action, there's not like an answer for that. It's kind of you've got to work out yourself how to sort of put it into your game and how
develop your own template.
Exactly,
basically.
yeah. So I think that's what I've tried to do throughout my career: is watch as much as I can, learn as much as I can from other people, but then find a way of developing it into my game, and then I think all that hard work. Then, you know, so for me now, I feel like, I don't know, I remember saying to someone, even when I retire, I feel like I'll still want to bowl, even if it's in a net, just because I love the feeling of the ball, seeing the ball swing late, you know, or both ways, and it's just, I feel like it is something that is a beautiful thing to be able to do, and so yeah, I think I'll definitely try and still do it when I'm finished.
That's fantastic, actually. That you, after all this time, after all the balls you've bowled, the wickets you've taken, you still get joy out of just feeling the ball come out your hand. And there's no reason, Jimmy, why you should stop at all. No reason at all. And I would think that the last month or so that you spent in Pakistan will have just reaffirmed that in you, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, I feel very fortunate that my body allows me to do the job that I've got. You know, a lot of people, there's so many players I play with who struggle with injury, and, you know, Test cricket in particular is quite gruelling for a fast bowler, but I'm very fortunate that I can do it. And yeah, I feel like, you know, I don't feel like I'm 40. I feel, you know, playing one format for the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even a bit longer than that, 7 or 8 years maybe, that's really helped me. I've had breaks to be able to get fit. So I've probably not got a 40-year-old's body, sort of thing. You know, I'm not a typical fast bowler where you start creaking towards the end of your career. So at the minute I feel great. I don't feel like it takes too much out of me when I, you know, still putting the shifts in a test match, bowling 25 overs in a day. Still, you know, obviously it hurts, but it's still, I can definitely turn up the next day and keep doing it. So yeah, I think there's no reason why you should put a limit on how long you can play for.
I totally agree. I you know, there is so much more we can talk about. We've been going for about half an hour now, so I think there's plenty more of these beyond the boundary interviews with Jimmy. If you care to come back and do one in the future,
Absolutely,
that'd
yeah.
be great. Jimmy, thanks very much indeed. It's been great to have you here at Emirates Old Trafford, and long may the career continue.
Thank you.